What's going on, everyone? Back again. It's Freddie. We're here with another episode of Capturing Form. And man, I am so excited because for one, we're almost done with season 1. That's 15 episodes. And right now is episode 12, which I can't believe. Time is just moving so fast. I remember when I got started with this podcast, it was all just an idea actually in January. I wanted to find a podcast that was about creatives for the creator. And I was having difficulty finding that. So I was like, man, why not just create something myself? So I had it in the back of my mind for a while. And then come May, I was like, it's about time to start. I've had the idea for a while. I just contacted my first 3 or 4 guests. It's time to get on a roll. So recorded some episodes in May and it's already August. And by the time this episode comes out, it might be October. Actually September. I lied. Time is just not, time is flowing so fast. But right now, September, this episode is probably going to come out in October, which means podcast will have been existing for several months now. Couldn't be more excited for its continuation because we have some amazing guests. And we might as well just kick this episode off with amazing guests too, who has an insane story. And when I say insane story, I legitimately mean it. From point A to point B to now point Z, it's been a roller coaster. I cannot wait for you guys to hear what he has to say, not only about his story, but his thoughts in the creative field. And I don't know if most of you guys out there know, but I was a huge sneakerhead. Perhaps foraying back into it soon, but we're going to talk some sneakers, and I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So might as well just introduce him now. What's up, Frankie, man?
What is up? Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this podcast, and yeah, let's do it.
Hell yeah. I mean, what have you been up to recently? What's the past week been looking like for you?
Past week. I mean, I'll go last to first. Yesterday, I was able to get a good beach day in with my family, which is cool. Did a little paddle boarding. That was nice. It was hot, but being in the water kind of equalized that. And then the last week, hot and heavy at the firm, working on a couple different projects, but that's been all good. I was able to connect with a couple homies here in San Diego doing some great stuff in the nonprofit space, some really good missions about creativity, about affecting youth, about showing them, possibilities and options. So I'm extremely motivated about that, excited to dig in there. And yeah, everything's been chill. What about you, my man?
That's a triple threat weekend. You got the nonprofit situation. You got a nice beach day. Yeah. You got some cool things going on at work, honestly. Seems dope. Yeah. For me, I actually just met up with a creator I really liked on Instagram. We shot this music video, and I was like, I had never done that before in my life, being on set for something. Mm-hmm. But I think I did all of the grunt work. But I went there with the full intention of, you know what? I'm totally going to be the guy that holds up the lights. Totally going to be the guy that holds the hip hop artist speakers while he raps to it in front of the camera. And I did all those things. But at the end, they were like, yo, we're going to give you a shot on the gimbal. It was an insane set. They brought out the Lambo, the Rolls Royce, the AMG, sports car. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So went ahead and tried to do my best to add some value there. But it was quite a wild ride. I've never had something like that. But honestly, just man, I have a lot to learn because these guys had so much skill on the gimbal, the lighting situation. They're like, this is good. This is bad. Oh, right here, you need to do this. I was like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. I just filmed myself. So yeah, it's been a big, I guess, week in that regard, but just continuing to learn things. And now we're kicking it with another episode here. Not sponsored, but Liquid Death. I have been on their marketing train. I don't know if you have gotten the chance to try it.
I haven't. I know the brand. I just haven't tried it.
Yeah. I got introduced. I went to a Live Nation concert, and I know that they exclusively sell this type of water. So I bought a can, and I was like, this is pretty good. And I know they have their whole marketing scheme, something that you can drink at a punk concert or a rock concert without, with still being sober, but without getting ridiculed for drinking something that's not beer. So I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. The taste is pretty good too. And it's a nice, tall one. So I've been enjoying it recently.
I'll have to give it a shot, man. I've seen it in the store for a long time. Before I knew anything about the brand, I was like, I just thought it was alcohol.
I think that's what most people think off rip. It's like, is that alcohol? And it's like, no, this is sparkling water. The new generation, the new wave of water, sparkling.
Yeah,
Are you a
which is
sparkling
great because
guy?
you could still sparkling, flat, whatever. I was gonna say you could still catch somebody who doesn't know and have them think you're it's 9 a.m. and you're just day drinking.
It's just 9 a.m. and you've decided to make today a nasty one.
That's your third liquid death. Are you feeling okay?
I'm like, yeah, just my tongue's prickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a great week so far. I'm excited to kick off the next one this week. But why not kick it off by hearing off your story? I think your story is probably one of the most interesting ones I've ever heard. I remember the first time we ever talked, and this was during the summer at this point. This must have been around June, I think. And we've kept it up until now. And the first time I heard it, I was like, no fucking way. That's nuts. Because I was going through a huge military phase at the time. I was reading a lot of military books, especially with the SEALs and the Deltas. So why don't you just kick it and take the microphone for yourself? Because you can explain it way better than me.
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey into creativity, I would say is atypical, but I can't really say that because everyone's journey, as I'm learning, is atypical, which is great. I'm around, I look at it as like, we're all a bunch of like misfits, pirates, whatever you want to call it, whatever your analogy is, and how we got here. And I think it's incredible. So my story, I grew up in New Jersey, very close to Manhattan. I was always in the city, taking the train and that whole thing. But I say that because 9/11, right, was a big deal for the nation, huge for me too. Like, could see the smoke from my town, affected a lot of people in my immediate vicinity. And I think that was a defining moment in my adolescence that kind of fueled my early adulthood and the decisions that I made. So grew up, ended up actually dropping out of high school, was like definitely a knucklehead, did not have my stuff together, got my GED, went to work, didn't really know what I wanted to do, didn't really dig school all that much. And then
was it something about it? Was it the studying, or was it the teachers, or was it just a mix of I don't feel like I belong here?
I think I was immature. I think I was like, I've had a problem with patience my whole life. And I'm like, well, I'm here doing this. Like, I could be working. Like, I could be making money. Like, I don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, my immaturity, whatever I was thinking, I just wanted to go faster, and I was like being involved in stuff I shouldn't have been involved in. And I think it was a combination of all that it was just like, all right, I need to like, I'm not doing any good here. I need to like get my GED and get into the workforce or something. Right. And I think my parents looked at it as like the lesser of two evils. It's like, all right, let's just try to get them like on track. But, so I was with my wife now, who was my girlfriend at the time. She and I were dating since like 14 and 15 years old. We met like freshman year of high school.
Y'all have that's the legitimate definition of ride or die.
Yeah, she's my best friend, and we grew up together. And we have two beautiful daughters today, and everything is, is good. But yeah, so I decided over a weekend pretty much like that I wanted to enlist in the military. And my mom, I was an only child. It was hard for my mom to carry babies. She miscarried before me, after me. I was born prematurely. So this is like her worst friggin' nightmare, bro. If it was up to her, like we would have lived in the basement in New Jersey and had our whole family there like forever, So this is like, my mom was like, oh my God, no. And I was like, nah, I think I'm going to do it. Like, I'm able-bodied. I feel like there's a conflict going on. Like, I should be there to do something to contribute. So
did she react horribly when you told her that?
She reacted better than I thought. I think she knew, because I've been stubborn my whole life. And when I say I'm going to do something, I usually find a way to make it happen. So she knew, so she, I think, just tried to make peace with it. And, all my cousins, everybody, I missed them terribly. And I left. And that's what put me in Southern California, because the type of job that I was doing, they made that job here in San Diego. So I went in, I joined, special operations. I went through the selection process, through luck, a little bit of luck, because it's always luck, right? Your body, your mind, all these things you have to hold up, and train it hard. I was able to make it through. So I wanted to be a special operator for US SOCOM for about 11 and a half years. So I deployed all over the world, unconventional, like warfare kind of stuff, small units, complex problems, inherent risk, a lot of strategic thinking and tactical application, right? So did that. And then there was a point, like whenever you leave to do something like that, right? Like you go on a deployment, you're leaving for, I don't know, months at a time. And the other thing that the people don't tell you is like you're gone even when you're stateside. You're training all the time to leave, and then you actually leave. So it's hard. It's hard on any relationship, on your, your significant other, on your, if you have a family, your children, like your existing family. It's a difficult life, and it's hard on your body. It's hard on your mind. So I think it was my third deployment. It was like after 7 months or something, I came back, and there's a period of adjustment where you're like learning again, like what's happening day to day. Like I'm not there, I'm here, and you're kind of settling back into your groove. But the weirdness didn't really go away, bro. It was like, and she's my ride or die. So we've been together forever, and I knew something was up. So I pressed her a little bit. I was like, hey, what's up? Like clearly there's something on your mind. Like, let's just talk about it. And she's like, I don't know if I could do this anymore. And it blew everything up for me. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know if you could do this anymore? Because I took it almost like negatively right away. Like, you said we were going to be together. And like, are you saying you don't want to be with me? Like, what is this about? And she's like, no, I'm not saying I don't want to be with you. Like, I love you. I want to be with you. I'm saying if we keep doing this, like, this is a lot for me here. Like, we have 2 kids. I'm at my breaking point. And I was just like, I had to sit with this because at that point, I hadn't thought about really doing anything else. I didn't have a trade other than the one I was in. So it was scary. It was like, my family needs me to not do this, but I don't know what else to do to provide for them. So I was like, really soul searching, digging deep, like, what do I do? So I was always the dude that was like messing around in Photoshop and Illustrator. Like I was designing swag and like had like, I would drop shirts, dude. I would like randomly while in the military, I would design shirts, drop like a run of like whatever, 500 or 1,000, just like sell enough to re-up to do it again. Because I love designing and like that's how I grew up, dude. Like mixtapes, that whole scene. Like something about that, like I get a dopamine hit, like designing something, seeing it, pushing it, and then people like wearing it. You're just like, wow, this is like pretty incredible. So I was like, maybe I'll look into design. Maybe there's something there. So there's a foundation that helps people in the job that I had transition to civilian life. And pretty much people that came from the job that I was in, they'd be looking to go into like finance or consulting or like, more like business consulting though. And they never had somebody come out and go like, I want to be a designer. So they really didn't know how to help me, but they did put me in touch with someone who is a designer. He had his own firm, like design and strategy firm here in San Diego. And he was kind enough to give me his time. And I was like, hey, here's a portfolio. Here's some things I've designed, some logos, some shirts, some this, some that. I would really like to know if I were to get a job as a designer here, like what am I missing? What would you recommend that I have? Like what would lead you to hire me? And he was like, well, you have some talent. There's some good stuff here. I think, the big thing missing here is school. I would look for maybe some education. I was like, great. Give me your top schools. So he gave me a list. I was blessed, privileged that I had my GI Bill from serving that I could dedicate to school. So I ended up enrolling in the Savannah College of Art and Design because I could do it online. And I still had like 3 years left on my military contract, 3.5 years, something. So I had to like finish my time, but also in that time I was teaching as an instructor in the military. So I was doing that job and going to school full time because that's the only way my GI Bill would cover if I took 45 credits. So it
was going back to school a shock after having dropped out of high school? Did you feel almost a certain type of way again? Or was it this time I have a different mindset towards this, I'm going to treat it differently?
The latter. I was like, wow, for me, that's what it worked out. And I was like, I almost feel like, a lot of people would benefit actually instead of being pressured to figure it out at 16, 17, when you're prepping to go to college or whatever, you figure it out later after you kind of have some world experience and you like settle into your groove and you're like, what do I want to pursue? So I was totally ready to take it. And I was motivated to do this for my family. I was interested in what I was doing. Like people may hate this stuff, but I went to like formal art school and like having to relearn how to see and draw and like mix paint with a palette knife and like learn about Baroque art versus Greek art, Romanticism and like modernism and all these different things was fascinating to me. I had a great time, even though it was stressful because I was like at my limit with what I could handle between the military and my family and school. But there was a silver lining there. And that I think, I fell in love again with learning. I met some great people and was like almost like reinvigorated and inspired to go like see what's out there.
Yeah. Do you know Nick Bear by chance?
No.
He's a former military, I think he was Army, and he basically is like an ultra marathon runner now. And
cool.
He has his own podcast, like the Bear Performance Podcast. And I was actually listening to the last episode because you were talking about you had this on your plate and you were at your breaking point. He was like, you choose your hard in life, but I guarantee you, if you choose hard in life, there will be the most fulfillment down the road. Whereas if you choose easy in your life, your life will be easy, but you might not feel fulfilled at the end of the tunnel. And I was like, damn, that one hits.
That's true. I would agree with that. I'll have to look Nick up. And I would say too, thinking back to the selection process for special operations, there were a lot of people that were fit enough to do the job. It's just they had never dealt with loss. So like you get a D1 runner who's never lost a sprint, and then he gets to this selection course in the military where they will break you. They break everyone. And it's like, what do you do when you lose? And some people don't know how to lose well, and like, or they haven't had that adversity, and that's where they wash out. You know what I mean? So like, there's that principle in there too, right? Like if you haven't chosen the hard road, or you haven't, I won't say chosen, and it's not saying that those people couldn't have made it. It's just maybe some of that adversity would have built their character in a different way, and that could have shown them earlier how they could have overcome something like that. Because I have no doubt that those people did. If not then later. It's just like getting those lessons.
No, I think that's true as well. So you're balancing all three at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, like, what did it take for you to finish school? I'm assuming you're no longer teaching in the military anymore.
No, I'm totally out of the military.
Totally out of it now. And then how'd you get to perhaps where you are at now, and what are the things that you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I finished up my degree like on the same year that I was actually exiting the military, which wasn't that long ago, man. It was 2021. So last year, the beginning of 2021. And I was volunteering, freelancing. I was on the board of directors for the AIGA here in San Diego as a copywriting director. Basically, I had this giant insecurity. And I think this is important for people to understand. Like, I felt insecure about having 10 and a half years or 11 and a half years by the time I get out in the military as like not being in the industry working. So I looked at this as this huge gap that I had to make up. So I was doing everything I could to build experience. Like if I had time to volunteer, which was slim, like I would do that. Kind of like when you were talking about like, yo, I'll hold the speaker. I was like, I'll tie your trash bags. Like, let me in the room. Like, let me in the room. Let me learn something. Like, I'll buy you coffee. Give me 30 minutes of your time. Like, I just was talking to people, trying to figure out how do I close these gaps? How do I talk about my experience relevantly in this industry that I want to go into? But my like aha moment was when I volunteered at an event called Good Measure here in San Diego. And Basic, which is a phenomenal agency here, they hosted it in their space. So their space is dope. It's downtown, like in East Village. Like awesome vibes. And then all these creatives come together in San Diego, different teams, like strategy team, copywriting team, design team, development team. And they dedicate their time over 72 hours and rebrand a nonprofit. And it was incredible. Met a bunch of people. I happened to just be on the strategy team. That's what I like applied for. This is also where I met Ramel. And I met the founder here who basically we were putting in these 10-hour days. And then he took time afterward with me and showed me things he was working on for his consultancy or the consultancy he was at. He didn't own the consultancy, and it was huge brands, like big work. And I was enamored. I was like, what is this called? How do I do it? Like, this is what I want to do. Because I was in school for design.
Yeah.
And I knew it. And then I met somebody else who was at RGA at the time. He was showing me work that he did actually with Snapchat and Jordan. I was like, this is how do I do this stuff? So that was when I was put on a strategy. They mentored me like really well. I switched my major to visual communication. That was like more, I think, would serve me better than like design. And then I finished my degree. I knew exactly kind of like what I wanted to do. So I started to like freelance where I could, only to my capacity, what I felt like I could actually provide value, not like over promising things like that I didn't know. Volunteering more in that space, like reading books, cohort classes online, in addition to school, to just try to be ready. Because basically when I was up with my military contract, like I either needed a job or I needed to have stable freelance. So did some time at a performance marketing agency, did some time freelancing, got lucky on some projects, or that I was trusted to do some projects, did well on those projects. That work brought me more work. Then I got hired at an agency here in Grizzly in San Diego as a strategist. And then from Grizzly, I was hired at Siegel and Gale, which is where I currently am, as a strategist. So I am a brand strategist, consultant. It's consultancy, strategic consultancy, but it's also an experience firm. We have like design, we have research, we have experience, we have naming, we have brand-led change, brand comms, like all these different components that come together, and we really like build brands like from the ground up, reposition brands, like brand architecture, all that stuff. So that's what I'm doing today. And I'm like, I can't believe it, bro. I can't believe that like I went on this crazy path, did like
crazy
something that was like difficult in the military, and then did it again in branding. Like was blessed enough with privilege, experience, like good fortune, that I was able to get to one of the top firms in the world for branding and to do this with like huge brands. It's amazing.
Did you think the trial run in the military is more difficult, or did you think the transition out into civilian world was more difficult for you? Or were they difficult in different ways?
I mean, I can't say that it wasn't difficult, like to get into special operations. Like there's a high threshold there, high attrition rate, but like there's a couple things that were different in my life. I was young. I didn't have the stress of providing for a family. It was literally just like my wife and me, and like we could live in a studio with like air mattress. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't all this other stuff. There was no gymnastics. There was no jujitsu lessons. There was no guitar lessons. You know what I mean? All this other stuff. And I was just like able to kind of totally focus on that. But like when I transitioned out of the military has some guarantees, right? You're getting paid on the 1st and the 15th. Like you are, conflict, unfortunately, is good job security. There's always going to be a conflict to fight. There's always going to be something to do in that arena, that space. Moving into civilian life, now I have to look for something where I'm making at least as much money as I'm making in the military. Like I have to worry about benefits and healthcare for my family. I have to figure out, am I going to be commuting? Like, what is that going to look like for my job? Is it work from home? Like all these other different things. And the military almost keeps you dependent. It keeps you dependent on making a certain amount of money over a certain amount of time. And like, there's this illusion, that you're being taken care of. And my philosophy was this, man. I am guaranteed certain things in the military, but there's also a ceiling. I'm never going to dip below a certain point, but I'm also not going to rise above a certain point, because that is the way it works. Like you could work like as hard as 10 people, you could slack off and do like half a job, and like legitimately, like nothing really happens. Like you get paid the same. You promote on a cycle that's like very academic and like doesn't really speak to your talent. And those were some things that I was frustrated with, whereas like, you know what, I could get out of the military and I could be broke in 6 months, or I could be making more money than I ever did, because I just wanted the ball. I wanted the ball. I wanted to go make it happen. Like whether I failed or succeeded, I wanted it to be me and my choice.
Is this a realization you had while in special forces, or do you think that's a realization most people have while in the military? Or is this once they leave, they start to get this realization that, oh, there was a threshold, there's a ceiling that I had, and by me getting out is a risk either for the better or for the worse? Is it a realization then, or is it a realization when you get out?
I think, and this is Frankie's opinion, right? So take it for what it's worth. So I think there's like two things. I think anyone who's entrepreneurial, like we are, you have like a certain drive and a desire that maybe some other people don't. So there's things that bother us that wouldn't bother someone else. So I think some of my friends are cool with it because they don't want the ball, or in that sense, they don't need to go build something of their own. They don't have like the same ambitions. I'm not saying they don't have ambitions or that the military isn't fulfilling their ambitions in some way. It's just the ones that I had, I was kind of capping out like where I was in the military, I think for me, there was, I mean, to be blunt, like some issues with accountability and hypocrisy, like I said, and like doing a job and like where things were being recognized and the other factors that were coming in that I was just like not being totally fulfilled. And I was like, I've never also talked to anyone kind of on the back half of their military career that's like, I freaking love what I do. And then, and this is like, this is like something that not a lot of people are talking about and not a lot of people probably want to hear. And I might get a lot of hate for this, but I'm being real, dude. Like,
let's be real.
Everyone that I talk to, I'm not an absolutist, right? I don't want to say everyone. That's misleading. Many of the people that I talk to, when you ask, hey, how's it going? Like, it's always like, I got 8 years left. I got 4 years left. I'm going to retirement because there's money there at the end of retirement and healthcare and thing. And I'm like, you're doing a prison sentence. You're in the box. Like, you're like, oh, I got 8 years left. Like, I don't want to, you know what? Like, for me, if I would have finished my career, because everyone's like, oh, you're already at 11 years. That's 9 years left and you're good. I'm like, 9 years, that's a decade. That's what I did. Again, that's my daughter at 18. Like, it's over. Like, I'm not doing that. And you know what? I'm going to go and like, you know what I could build? You know what I could build in 10 years on my own? I'm good. I'm going to go do that.
You're never too late to build like a castle.
50-year-old rapper, bro.
50-year-old rapper. And honestly, it just starts with laying that foundation. You just need those first bricks there. And once you have the blueprint, man, just keep building. Because even, you could switch up at 50 and your life could be totally different. So salute to you, I guess, for afterwards being like, you know what? I can't stop now. Just because I did 11 years doesn't mean that the next 9, I can just sit around. I'm going to go make it. I'm going to go get my education. I'm going to come back. And now you do something that you love.
And it would have, bro. It would have been easy because I was getting to the point where I was more senior. There's perks that come with that, I'm sure. You know what I mean? And like, to your point, like there's a humility aspect that it takes to make a transition like that, to know that like I was, at the top of my game for more or less. I was teaching something that I knew really well. I'd been doing it for 10 years. Like, something really well after doing that, you put in your 10,000 hours or whatever and going to do something new. You're not starting at that position again, right? You might even be starting over. Like, I took a mid-level position to get into, one of the best firms in the world. And I was okay with that. I was like, you know what? I have a lot to learn. I'm going to learn it fast because I have a lot that I can apply, but you got to be okay with that. And there's some people that they don't, even within creativity, it's like, oh, I don't want to give up that creative director title, to go somewhere and maybe be a senior designer, or I don't want to, give up my own thing for whatever reason. And that's okay. I'm not saying that you need to. I'm just saying those are things that could inhibit you or impede you, like short game versus long game. If I just take this mid-level and it's okay to pay my bills and all this stuff, I can grow from here and then like mass this experience. And then like, I'll shoot, like my trajectory is going to be so much farther versus like being like a little stubborn. Like, I came out of this job title. This is the equivalent job title in the field I'm going to, and I'm not going to settle unless I get that. But I mean, there's also something to be said, knowing your worth. Just for me, where I was at, it made a lot of sense to like humble myself, take a mid-level position, and then work my way back up. But I mean, I'm already doing that like tenfold.
One of the hardest lessons to learn in life is to put your ego in the back seat. Because we feel like after X experience, or we've been doing this for so long, there's no way you could label me this, when I deserve this label. And to put that ego in the back seat for everyone, including myself. I've been recording myself on a camera, working with the camera now for at least 6 years. Granted, not in the capacity that I'm doing now, but still. And to do things like, you know what, I'm just going to hold your light. I'm just going to hold the speaker. I'm just going to watch you guys. I came here with the full intention of doing work that maybe I wouldn't have been satisfied of doing it before, but I'll gladly take it now just to be in your presence and get the opportunity to experience your time. Man, it's one of the hardest lessons to learn. But once you do, I think that the fruits of the labor of that just come back, tenfold. So that was a big lesson that I learned honestly, pretty recently, within the past like 1 or 2 years, to be like, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what experience I have. Someone has something else to teach me, and I'll put myself in the backseat to watch them drive and whatnot.
100%, dude. And like, look, you did all that, and then you got a shot on the gimbal. And like, people see like what you can do there. And like, that's what it's all about. It's like, get in the door, be a good person, And then like people will give you opportunities, you know what I mean? And like from there, who knows like what that can lead to. And even if not, you're meeting people. And I really think the creative industry is all about relationships. Like, yes, you have dope like talent, like that everyone does. And sometimes you get known for something and you have a certain style and people want it and they'll come and they'll find you for that style. But more often than not, there's just so much creativity going on. Like if I need to hire for something, right? Like at our firm or something, I'm going to reach out to my circle, like people I know first, you know what I mean? Versus just like someone I don't. So like the more people you know and the more you're clear about what you do and the type of work you like to do, because people want to align like their needs with your ambitions. It's like, I don't want to give you a project that you don't love, but like if I think of something that's totally in your wheelhouse that you're like awesome at and it's something I need, like I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you first. You know what I mean? And I think that is like the beauty of getting in the door and knowing people and meeting people, those 30-minute coffees or, a quick call with somebody, like just if they have time and you're like, hey, I'll get you a coffee or I'll get you a liquid death, man. Like sit and chop it up with me for 20 minutes. Like, I mean, that's how we met,
that's
like
how
we
we
just
met
randomly and like, look at us now. We're on your podcast and like, who knows what the next step is going to be, in our trajectory, and the more I know about you, the more I can like find things like, because I want to see you win. I want to see everybody
likewise
win. I'm not sitting here like trying to keep it for myself, because when you do that, like you stall. The more you give and the more you push out to other people and try to help people win, like the more that comes back to you. I'm 110% sure of that. I've seen it happen. I've witnessed it and it's happened to me. You know what I mean? Like I believe it.
There's no better feeling than watching the people around you win. And even if people say in totality, life is a zero-sum game, you got to do your best to make it not.
Yeah.
Everyone has an opportunity to win. If you can see someone around you get the opportunity, if you can help them, why not? And make their day and obviously help them throughout whatever it is that they're asking for you. So that feeling in itself, priceless.
I must dedicate probably, and this is not like I guess maybe it does come across like a humble brag or something, but like I dedicate probably 20% of my time to like answering stuff on LinkedIn and like people because if people didn't do that for me, I would not be where I am today. So like, I want to make time for people that reach out and like, I want to reach back into the community because like, I'm lucky. I am doing what I love to do at like one of the top places there is to do it and working with like brands that everybody uses and like that are cool. So like, I'm getting this feel of like, oh, clout chasing and whatever. But like, what really fulfills me too is like reaching back into the community, like, especially here in San Diego. Like, how can I collaborate with a business that needs something like to take them further and to make the community better or to help like young creatives or even if it's someone that wants to do something totally different. If they're like, oh, I want to go start a tech startup. Like, well, I don't know much about, I know a little bit about tech startups, but not as enough to start one. But what I can do is talk to you about branding and like what's important. And like, hopefully you can take that knowledge with you. And then like, that for your business or something, you know what I mean? Like whatever I can do to pour back into the community to help other people win, like that fulfills me in a way that like my just doing the day job doesn't. And like, for me, that's super important. Like I am at my happiest when like all these things are in alignment, and spending time with family and doing all that. But like, that's a big one for me.
No, that's huge right there. And I think it's a great way to segment into your career right now and talk the creative stuff. After all, I think this is where I feel like a lot of people, including myself, get a lot of value from you. So why don't you just go ahead and discuss like what exactly does your job entail? I know you touched on it a little bit, but for everyone out there that doesn't know, I think it'd be really good to get an explanation and then perhaps how can someone else out there get into this type of role?
Yeah, absolutely. So brand strategy, and I love talking about brand strategy because I think it's abused in a way. Like it is ambiguous. There's a lot of noise around it. It's hard to find good information. I know from looking myself and trying to like get into it. So if I can offer any kind of like legitimate information for anyone out there, like I will, and I hope to do that today. So essentially, you have a brand, right? And there's different ways that a brand manifests itself. There's 100 million definitions out there of what people think a brand is. Working at Siegel and Gale, we consider it a promise delivered. And what I love about this is, as a brand, like there is something inherently there, a promise, a pledge, some type of connection that you have, right? Like the connection you have with Liquid Death over Dasani, right? Is water. But like there's something a little different about each of those, right? And then also when you have this brand, right? I'm in strategy, so we deal more with the idea. Like how do we position this brand, based on unique selling proposition or like based on competitors, and like what does it mean to be this brand in culture, across cultures, whatever. Who are we for? Like all these different things, and how do we simplify and distill that down to an idea that's specific enough, right, to mean something, but not so specific that is limiting and inhibiting for other people to do their best work, because people need to build on this. When you lay the foundation, that's just a start, right? So now we have, how do we express this visually, verbally, experientially, and like how this comes to life? That is the delivery part. How do you deliver on the thing you say you're going to deliver? Because when you have misalignment in those things, that's when it's not good. So when you're a brand and you say we're this, we're that, and then your experiences don't reflect that, the actions that you take, the people that you hire, whatever you're doing, that's where you have misalignment. Consumers are very, very smart. You can't hide anything anymore because, the internet, social media, everything, it will get out. So now how do you, and that's not to say we're building like a big facade, but like, how do you, if you want to be this brand and this is your purpose and this is what's driving you, right? Let's take, Freddie in the podcast today. Like, I'm not telling, if we were going to brand this together, like, I'm not going to tell you what you stand for. You're going to tell me like what is driving you and what are your ambitions and those things. And we're going to take that as one input. And then we're going to look out and see like, what do your listeners care about? Where are they perceiving the value in your brand? And what is your competition doing? Because the enemy gets a vote. Oh, that's more of a military thing. Shouldn't use the word enemy, but like in the military, it was the enemy gets a vote. In business and brand here, it's like your competition gets a vote, right? They get a say. It's a dynamic space. So now based on what they're doing and what your customers want and the things that you want inherently, like where is that sweet spot and what is that idea? And how can we build something very, unique and ownable for you and not just be like, oh, he's a podcast like this, right? How do we make this like, no, this is its own kind of like thing. And that essentially is kind of like one part of it, right? So you have like brand positioning, could be like brand promise, brand purpose, like this whole side. And then another thing that I deal with a lot is brand architecture. So whatever that story is and all those intuitive relationships within a portfolio, how do you brand things, whether it's products, whether it's a brand itself, to create those intuitive relationships, to tell that cohesive story and to make the portfolio easily navigated by customers, partners, et cetera. So you could have something like, Coca-Cola portfolio where, you have a bunch of, it would essentially be like a house of brands. You have Coca-Cola, but then you also have Powerade and you have Dasani and you have all this other stuff in there, right? And there could be some different reasons for that. Maybe Coca-Cola comes out with a sports drink and it's branded Coca-Cola and you just don't think like this is really a healthy sports drink for me. You know what I mean? Like maybe we can't overcome that and maybe that would dilute some of the equity in our Coca-Cola brand. So we've chosen to build our own brand, Powerade, that is just about sports. It's like our total like athletic push. And I don't know, I'm making this up. I haven't worked with Coke, so please don't take this as fact. It's just kind of like we're spitballing here. That could be a reason, right? But that's expensive to maintain. When you have different brands, there's different considerations, right? Everything in this world is about like, what do you get? What do you gain? What do you give? Same thing in like the military, right? When you make a move or you take a certain position, you gain something and you give something up, and you're just kind of balancing those things. You're like, okay, do I feel like we're gaining what we need to be effective or to influence the outcome that we want? Of course, we're going to give some things up, and that's okay. And then you have architecture where it could be like a branded house where everything is like one stemming from that enterprise brand, right? So it's all branded the same.
Like Google.
Right. And then you could have hybrids too. Well, even in Google's portfolio, they have some individual brand stuff that you probably wouldn't think is theirs, but it is. But and then that maybe it's more of a hybrid there too, right? Like so there's a ton of like different ways to think about that. But anyway, the goal of the brand architecture side is just to make that intuitive. So like when you show up, you know what the offerings are, you can find them easily, and it does go back to that idea. Like it does reflect that core positioning, that core idea for what the brand is, because you can tell stories through the architecture too. And strategy is a lot of storytelling. I think that's a huge part of it. And then I'll give you this too, and then I'll stop for questions. So when I think about strategy to me is two things are going to happen, right? Or two things meet in the wild, right? Let's go back all the way back to like primal evolution. And this is coming from Bruce Henderson, really. He has a theory. He's like, by some considered the father of like modern business strategy. He founded the Boston Consulting Group. Very smart cat. There's a good Harvard Business Review article actually on like his thoughts. But anyway, he kind of brings it back to evolution. And this aligns with me for what I know from military strategy. You have two things that meet in the wild and they're competing for the same resources, right? So like shade, food, whatever. Something wins, something loses. Like that is what happens, right? So strategy really inherently, once strategy is introduced, it's just a plan. I hate the word plan, but like it is us trying to influence what's going to naturally occur in a certain direction, right? For a favorable outcome. So
I've never heard that explanation before. That's actually solid.
You put a brand out there, right? You put Freddy's Liquid Death out there, right? This is your version of Liquid Death. You put it out there and something's going to happen. People are going to buy it. People are going to walk by it. We don't know. But we have a strategy, right? We start to define this brand in a certain way. And then we layer on all the other components, the brand components, the marketing components. Now we're starting to influence what's going to naturally occur to hopefully, a favorable outcome, which is what do we want? We want people to buy it, or we want people to think about water in a different way, or whatever the things that we're trying to achieve. That's where strategy comes in. And that's why it's powerful. And it's powerful when you have a lot of things, like very saturated areas. Like think about some of the biggest brands in the world. Like it's not just about having this, like if you don't have something proprietary, which very few people do, like very few people have something that no one else does. And that's like one of the most misleading questions. And I am not a fan of when people are like, what do you do that no one else does? That's a misleading question. And then brands, so you have this like moment where you're like, oh no, I can't think of it. Maybe my product isn't good. And like, I don't know what to do. It's like, no, the whole reason that you have competition is because you have something that works. And if it's a good idea, people are going to replicate it. So it's probably a good thing that you're not the only one necessarily doing it. But it's like, are you the only one doing it in this way? Is there a certain philosophy or something that you have about your brand that's unique, right? Like there's different ways to create that differentiation, that distinction. But to sit there and be like, oh, are you the only podcast that talks about creativity? Like that's a crazy question. Of course.
Yeah.
Not. And if you were, you wouldn't need strategy. You could do whatever you want.
The biggest part of like creatorship, I saw this quote somewhere some time ago. I don't remember who said it, but it was like two people look at the same thing, but they each think differently about it. That's how creative things are born. So it's like you have two of the same products, for example, and we see that in our favorite thing, sneakers. They're all at the end of the day, things you put on your feet, but it's all different takes. And yeah, sure, some might have some proprietary technology, but at the end of the day, it's pretty difficult to measure. Is this one really better than the other? Because it's all a feeling. And it's all like your relationship with the brand. That's almost going to determine what you say about the shoe, about the technology, how it feels. It's all a branding thing. It's all an experience, all that tied together.
100%, dude. And I love fashion. I think fashion is like the epitome of brand. You have this commoditized thing, a shirt, a hat, a sneaker. Like, are these, $220 Jordans that much better than these like $60 or $80 Chucks? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're that different, but the power is in brand. Like, why is this? Because if brand really didn't matter, if it really didn't matter to people, to a certain degree, like you would just go pick up whatever. You would go hit up Costco or Payless or whatever, and you would just put something on your feet and you would like go about your day. And a lot of people do. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's more functional utilitarian that you're thinking. But when we think about what the brand means, and then one step more, like psychographically, what does that mean about me when I put it on? What am I showing? Because fashion, it's like decorating your house. Like people don't just get a house and leave it as it is stock. They put things that they like in it. They change the curtains. They do this because it says something about you and who you are and how you live, right? Sometimes you do stuff functionally where you're like, we want a kitchen with a double sink or whatever. Sometimes you're like, I'm going to put this art here because I love Banksy or whatever the case is. So same thing with fashion. Like not just about like, why did I buy brown waxed laces to throw in my desert elephants, right? Like, cause I like that look. And it also like whatever that combination is, I feel like that's me showing up uniquely. And like when someone looks at me up and down, they probably have a certain perception, right? Or like at least what I'm trying to outwardly display. And I don't think about that necessarily when I'm like putting my fit together. But inevitably, that is what is happening.
Let me ask you like from a devil's advocate point of view. So I was talking with someone actually, and we were talking about fitness supplements like protein powders and pre-workouts and things like that. And I was like, oh, you know what? There's this brand I really like. It's a brand that does their marketing really well. And their products, from what I've had so far, they taste really good. And I think that they have a solid effect on my total lifestyle. And he was like, but I take this product. And this product isn't advertised at all. It's just one of those things that you get at like a Costco. So does that mean you fell for their marketing ploy? Because if there is no real difference, did you just fall for a marketing ploy and as a result are willing to pay more for a similar product? And I was like, I've actually never heard that before. So even though technically it's my relationship with the brand and the brand has curated this experience for me and I really enjoy when I take it, because of whether it's not, they have all these collaborations or they have this certain taste that I really like. Is it just me falling for their marketing ploy to make me pay more for their product? Like, what is your thought about that?
Well, no, I don't think you're falling for anything, right? Like, there is a side, I guess, of marketing where one could say it is, misleading. And it's not like they're trying to make you pay more for the exact same thing. That's like not what I think is necessarily happening. There is the idea, there's a couple things wrapped up in here. One, it's like exclusivity, it's like grassroots, like something that like maybe not a lot of people know about. There could be that component, like where it's like, if it's the Costco thing, it's probably made in bulk. But like when you think about sneakers, it could be something that like I want it because not a lot of people have it. And I don't want it the mainstream stuff. I want something that I got to kind of go out of my way to find. So there could be that. But in this case, it kind of sounds like someone who's just like commodity shopping, right? So like they're just like, and then for this, like, what if they came out with a cheaper protein powder? Or let's just say it was a protein powder. I don't know if it was, but like, let's say they came out with something even cheaper. Like, would that person buy something that was even cheaper? And then if you start playing the cheap game, like we associate like quality with like price, especially like looking at local ingredients from restaurants or like craft coffee or any of these things, like, like what they're putting in these things and you're watching them prepare it. And there's like a higher price tag for like the preparation, the skill, the expertise. So that plays into your psyche too, right? Not just like the brand, but like there's an inclination there. Like, what am I putting into my body? Like I'm putting it into my body. So that's important to me. And then, do I see Costco as like a value brand or do I see it as a brand that's actually going to bring like the best ingredients to me? Right. I think that has something to do with it. Now, if we sat down like scientifically and broke down each product and tried to figure out the difference, like
there probably are some differences. I don't know, but I don't know.
Maybe or maybe not. But that is like the brand does make a difference, right? Like that's why if for nothing else than to differentiate one thing from another, that's essentially what brand is, right? Like way back in the day, like it came from like the Norse word like brander or something. Don't quote me because I don't speak this stuff. I just like looked it up once or twice. And essentially it's to burn or to or fire is like kind of how it translates into like what we would say now. So you think about branding something. So you brand cattle or livestock, like that is your cow. This is my cow or whatever it's supposed to be, your bull, my bull, or bottles of olive oil. This is my olive oil. That's your olive oil. That's what we branding is the process of differentiating something too. You know what I mean? Like that is why you brand something and why it's not just all the same. So not even just to try to like get you to pay more or anything, literally the brand just to show you this is my product, this is that product. So if you look at it from a very objective lens like that, pricing aside, you identify more with the product that you picked up because of the brand and like what it stands for, what it means to you. And also I would say this, if you're happy with it and it's working for you and you feel good about it and you align with the brand and what they're doing, and I'm not saying that if it's the exact same thing and they're charging you 3 times the price, like there's not an issue there because like maybe there is, but that is kind of part of what you're paying for too. It's not just the product, right? Because now we get into the commodity game. Who makes it faster? Who makes it cheaper? Who makes it less? Same thing think about it as being a creative professional. If I can do something in 10 hours and you could do something in 10 hours, but I charge $500 and you charge, $5,000, like, what does that say? Does that mean your stuff isn't good or like you don't deserve that money or there's a bunch of experience? Like, no, that doesn't mean that. And that doesn't mean you should charge less. Like you've commoditized it at that point. Like you're not paying necessarily for the thing, you're paying for the skill and the expertise and the way that they solve the problem. So in that, and applying that to the product, you don't have to think about like, oh, I'm getting duped, because it's not about that, right? There's a lot more wrapped up into that brand than just like the ingredients.
That is just like, for example, if you move to New York City and you're paying those prices, for a fact you're not paying to live in the box. You're paying to live in New York City. Yeah. So I guess it goes along with that. Why don't you, if someone's interested in this type of role, strategy in particular, especially on the creative side, what would you say for like this student or someone who's prospectively from the outside looking in?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some good books out there that you can pick up, even though I'm like, just to kind of like put you on the track. I'll get some to you actually after this, maybe if you want to link them.
Yeah, shoot them my way, please.
Yeah, there's some good books on how to like, it's not like a brand strategy book, but there's different things that you can pick up. So there's definitely some books. There's some courses. IDEO University has some like interesting courses on some things that I think are important to strategy. So there's like storytelling. There's I think there's one. It's like insights to innovation, like ideas to action, those type of things, right? Because strategy, at the end of the day, again, as a brand, as a promise delivered, strategy needs to be actioned, or else it just remains like this opinion and just never does anything. So it's important to think about how to activate these things. They also have like a strategy course, but I think it would be good, but it's like more rooted in business. And my favorite thing to suggest, find firms or people doing the kind of work that you want to do, identify them, and then like reach out to them. Like Siegel and Gale, it's a unique place because some people, and not just Siegel and Gale, like Red Scout is great. Zeus Jones, Sylvain, Triptych, 29. Like there's tons of places out there doing like amazing strategy work. Draw History is a really good one too.
Vivaldi Partners.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But there's a side of it too where it's like you have like, Accenture's or even like a Boston Consulting Group. I feel like that's like business focused strategy. It's a little different, very analytical.
Operations, supply chain, your finances.
Right. And then you have some firms that are like more creative on the creative side, where it's like you have like this creative ideas and that's good too. But strategy and brand strategy, and the way that I'm familiar with strategy, like there is a good balance of rigor and creativity. So like logic and imagination, because you identify through a rigorous process, like the inputs and like what's happening today, but the strategy happens in the future, right? Like, or the thing you're trying to influence is in the future. So we don't really know. At the end of the day, anyone that's saying that they know what's going on, like you don't, because it's in the future. And unless you can predict the future, I don't care about your analytics and all this stuff. You get a good idea, but you never really know. So that's the part where you need to imagine. That's the part where you need to think and explore and be creative and think of different ways to like try to influence the future or solve the problem or do whatever, right? And those firms I think are very special. So I would try to find those or find people in those roles, reach out to them, email, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you're on, whatever they're on, and try to get some time with them, right? Like look for internships, try to get into these firms, like wherever you can. And like this is where I've learned the most. Like actually, like you want to play basketball and you got a chance to get on like a good team and like watch or whatever the sport is, like the same thing. Like I want to go do this stuff with people that are really good at it, that are doing it at a high level today, not necessarily just learning from people who had done it, who had a 20-year career. They're teaching that because that's valuable too. But there's a lot of different perspectives and different things that you can pick up from people that are actually doing the work today. And that's my mantra, dude. Do the work. There's tons of like gurus and people that are teaching these workshops online and stuff. And like, it's almost like MLM creativity in a way. And I'm like, not saying don't take those workshops. I'm just saying like their whole business is teaching. They're focused on like getting students and converting. Like they're not focused on actually doing the work anymore. So you have to consider that in your calculus. Whereas you go somewhere where the work is being done, like the whole focus is doing good work, like getting more work. You're learning a ton at one time, like not necessarily just like a framework or a process, but you're actually like in it. You know what I mean? And that's what I did. I followed the work. I was like, okay, I see that there's classes and courses and things, but like who's doing good work? That's what I'm going to like base my final decision on.
I guess it's all then at the end of the day based on what have you done at the end of the day.
Somewhat. And like, what can you bring? And I don't want to like shut that off to say that people that are teaching, and that I don't want this to get misconstrued. Like, I've learned a lot from people that are teaching. I just mean, like, I don't think that should be your only source of information. Like anything, get a couple sources. You know what I mean? Like, take a couple classes, read a couple books, try to get in the door somewhere, or audit, intern, volunteer. Volunteering is huge. You can volunteer with people and like do a project like I did at Good Measure, or like to get a taste of these things in a capacity where you might not otherwise be able to. And like that will give you a good idea of like, oh, wow, this is what goes into it. There's so many people that are so generous with their time. Like if you just ask, if you're like, hey, I'm this person, I'm very interested. I love the work you do at your firm. Would you be able to point me in the direction? Do you have any openings? Like I would even show up, just to shadow you or something. You know what I mean? Like anything like that. Because people will, if they can't do for you, they can at least maybe point you in the right direction.
I think most people are pretty altruistic and they will want to help you if you just ask. And you would think that you're bothering them. And sometimes even I still am like, oh man, am I bothering this person? But most of the time they're actually so enthusiastic and just happy that someone reached out and wants to learn about them or their career, and is more than happy to create a relationship as long as you take the time out of your schedule. Because I think even if people are busy, if you're interested, and I because of all those things I just mentioned, I don't think many people are doing it. I think they'll make the time too. So slowly, that's something I'm learning. Just like kind of like this, which is I'm super stoked that one, you took the time, and two, that we've been able to create a relationship that we can actually communicate with each other in a casual manner.
Of course, man. Like who wouldn't? And I understand when people get busy. There's weeks where I'm super busy, but it's never a no from me. It's like, can we look at next month or something? You know what I mean? Like I'm never going to turn around and be like, no, if unless someone, I don't know, if they do something like shady or something like that's a whole different story, right? But like you show up and you like put the effort first, like, and you talk to people, dude, that's how I got where I am today. So many people just cool enough. And there was a lot of misses. It's a little bit of a volume game because people are busy or they don't check their inbox or they're not active on this platform or they just like don't have the time. But there were people that reached back and they were totally happy to talk with me for 15 minutes, for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes. And if I didn't get what I was looking for in that opportunity, like there was 3 more that came from it or something. You know what I mean? And that I think is the name of the game.
The name of the game for sure. What's your favorite brand? Might as well throw that one out there.
Favorite brand.
Is it going to be a fashion brand?
I can't pick one.
Well, you have a brand off the top of your head that just speaks to you? Resonates with your message, values align.
Something. There's so many. And I think this is a good point. Right? Like, I don't think anyone has like one brand, especially in fashion, like that defines them. That's why we wear like a bunch of different things, right? Like right now I'm really on some local San Diego brands that are like come to my mind actually, like versus like just big giant brands. Like there is San Diego native SDN brand, which is all about just like the San Diego vibes. My buddy Terrence down here, he is just, and it's not like you got to be from San Diego, but like San Diego is the brand. And like, this is a community of people that have been here. This is a community of people that have commuted here, have ended up here. And it's just all about that love and that synergy for the city. There's my buddy Jordan's brand, Westside Love here. It's all like, it's basically, here, I'll show you a sticker right here. Actually, I know that people can't see, but I'll describe it. So like, this is like one of the icons, right? Like it's basically the West Side sign. And then the fingers that overlap in the middle of the W make a heart. And it's just all about like spreading positivity and love and like all the good vibes from the West Side. And then Erwin Hines here, he was the creative director at Basic for a long time. He has Future is Color, which is really about Black genius and some of the systemic barriers that are out there. And he is just so thoughtful in the way that he educates through this brand. And the clothes are dope. They're crazy dope. Like the designs, like everything is just like phenomenal. So those are some like off the bat that I'm thinking of that are important to me, right? But like also like if we're thinking fashion, like Jordan brand, like of course, like even like Echo. I grew up on Echo and stuff. You know what I mean? Like I could name probably like 50 off the top of my head. Those are just like two random ones. There's a Brazilian brand that I love, Reserva, like spelled like reserva, but in Portuguese would like say he. And it's this little like woodpecker, and there's like a whole story to this brand and a vibe. And like every time I go to Brazil, my wife's Brazilian, like always pick up like a bunch of clothes there. And like, I love this brand. You know what I mean? There's just so much I think that I could think of. And I think that culmination, that summation of all those things, that is through fashion, me kind of telling the world about me. You know what I mean? Just like you would tell the world like about
personal
you.
Brand.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, now that I think about it, shit, I guess I can name it tons off the top of my head. When I was deep into fashion, I mean, for like colognes and stuff, I was always like, man, these high fashion brands, they really got these smells right. And I love the way I guess I feel when I put it on. So it's things like Chanel, YSL, and then obviously for like tech, rolling with Apple.
Of course.
For sneakers, we're rolling with Jordan Brand. You know, for microphones, we're rolling with Shure. Because that's what we think is the quality. Everything like that.
Too? John Geiger. Phenomenal. Actually, just settled his lawsuit with Nike and everything. Like his brand, fire. Like Cole Haan too. If I'm looking for like something dressy, like I love those shoes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could talk forever about that. You know what's actually super dope, and I would love to do this with you, is if we took a brand and we went ahead and dissected it and figured out how to perhaps brand it better. I give you like a situation or like a just some hypothetical startup, and you would let me know how you would go about, I guess, touching up their brand and how they can speak to customers to attract them.
Yeah, we could do that. We should set it up. We should set up like, because that would, one, I think, give people insight, whoever was interested, into at least the strategic process that I take, some of the considerations that I make. And then, because you could show someone how to do something, but in creativity, it's like, if you just replicate something, like this is what my love hate about a framework. A framework is great. It's a great tool, but like we're supposed to be outside the box thinkers. Like, and if you work inside the frame, like you're just going to produce the same thing that everybody else produces, right? That's why this is not an industrial thing. It's more creative. There's more to it. And that again comes down to like almost the conversation we had before about price and ingredients. It's not just about like 2 + 2 = 4 here. And that's like the way that we're going. So I could show people how to do it. But like, if you don't bring your own ideas and swagger and like essence to it, then like, it's not going to be successful no matter what I show or whatever we talk about. And like, but basically that wouldn't be the point. We're not teaching people how to do strategy, but we're just showing people how we're going to both think about it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that inspires them to think in a different way, or to get past something that they're thinking about, or like to basically add value, hopefully, after they listen.
So let's say we have medium-sized city, local brand, and just for our sake, they also make clothes. The clothes that they specifically work on are a mix between dressy clothes and then casual clothing that you can wear out. That's their niche. And their dressier clothing they have made for the middle class. So affordable, good quality, not going to break the bank, but also not what someone would consider like luxury. But something like maybe a tier under J. Crew. It's local, produced and sourced locally as well. And they are trying to promote their product and scale it beyond locally. Perhaps, I guess that would be around states, or that would be to I guess, digitize their business and make their e-commerce site absolutely banging. So their products, like an example of their product suite would, for example, be like, you have some pleated khakis, you have suits, just your classic gray navies, things along that nature. That is their bread and butter, and they're looking to expand. How would you go about branding themselves? Because they're having a tough time penetrating when there are brands like Banana Republic, J. Crew out there doing the exact same thing, but they're trying to differentiate themselves. I think I just splurged for a second, but that would be what I would say, that my hypothetical situation.
Yeah. So hypothetically, back at you, I would say first we would start with looking at what's happening right now, what's happening in the market, what is happening. Definitely looking at those competitors, like who are your core competitors, like maybe locally and then nationally, right? Like who are the big ones we need to be thinking about? Look at what do they want to do? Like what do they want to be known for if they're not already? You know, where are those sticking points? Looking like internally the organization, and then looking at who are we, thinking about as our primary audiences? Like, are we, not just demographically, but like who are the type of people that wear our stuff? And if it's not today, like who do we want those people to be? Overlaying all of that, like those three circles. And then like in the center would be like where we come out with like what this brand is going to be. So thinking about, okay, like what are the advantages of a J. Crew, of Banana Republic? Where are they strong? Where are we strong right now? Do we have like cultural ties and like a closeness to like the people that, a big brand just couldn't get because they're so huge? Like, do we have this like niche that we can, I don't want to say exploit, but capitalize on? Is there a style that we're coming forward with that is like fresh and new that no one is using? Are there collaborations that we can do that we can get to people that they can't? Like, is there a different, like, if we have the pleated khakis, like, can we do them in a different way, or do we not want to? And like, what do we stand for too at the end of the day? And when you think about what does Banana Republic stand for? What does J. Crew stand for? Do we stand for something that people would, because people care about that now. They care about what you're about and like what your values are. So like, is there something about us that aligns with a whole group of people that is not being served yet, or not being tapped into in the market that we're in? Fashion is tough because there's a lot.
Yeah, hyper-saturated market.
And then, when you expand like that, if you want to go nationally, are we just talking, e-commerce? Is there a plan for like in-store, physical? One quick way could be to like do pop-ups, man. Like the drop is huge. Like how do you do, drop culture, do different drops, have it like limited run, like those type of things to start like activating the brand and getting it out there. Maybe some like partnerships to kind of build some clout in different areas. Cause you have like in any city stuff that's happening. Right. And it's almost like getting a word of mouth referral from your homie. That's like, yo, you should check this out. Like if you're in with like a certain group or like some brands or like whatever, like you do a pop-up with like the coffee shop that everyone loves in the city, just to like kind of get the exposure, and you have your stuff there and you run a little event. Like maybe that's enough to, and I mean, that's more tactical on the marketing side, not necessarily on the brand side, but there could be that side of it too, that maybe the brand is strong and we just need to think about like, how do we activate it? Right. So there's like, I think a whole spectrum and like different ways that you could think about it.
That was dope that you walked through some of the questions that you would think about when figuring out how would I brand and activate this. Can you define activation for those that don't know why this is such an important term in this space?
Yes, absolutely. So activation to me would be, once you have the idea, the essence of what the brand is, then how will it be expressed? And thinking about expression as maybe the visual identity. So that could be logo, colors, typography, like all your standard brand identity stuff. That could be tone of voice, personality, these types of things that are going to come through. And I would say even personality is probably, it is more on the strategy side, but like once you have those tone of voice, basically how is the messaging going to come through? Like what are those things that we're going to say, those key themes, those, maybe audience specific value propositions, things like that. It could be experientially. Do we have a web store? Probably. What is that experience like? What is it like if you walk into a regular flagship store? If we have a physical location, what is it like if we activate those pop-up events based on the strategy? If we say we're this, do we partner with these kind of brands or these kind of influencers or these kinds of people? Or do we partner with, like, what if, and this is a weird time, like not a weird time, but like you don't have to play within these lanes, but like Liquid Death, like would they partner with Gillette? I'm sure there could be something, right? There could be something there for a reason, and there's a way you can make that work. But that is not like exactly what I think of when I think of like who would Liquid Death be partnering with, right? So like what does seem true and authentic about the people that we're going to partner with and the decisions we're going to make based on that strategy that we laid down, the position, the essence of who we are.
Gotcha. And I think, for example, the example you're talking about, Liquid Death, they've done a really good job positioning themselves there for that punk crowd, that alternative crowd, the out there crowd that doesn't want to get hammered when they're at a concert, but they still want to look like they're drinking something that would be suitable at that type of place. Because drinking like Dasani water when you got your favorite punk band playing probably isn't the best image. Whereas you have a tall can with a really dope, out there design. Plus you have the big, bold, standout name, Liquid Death. I mean, the hope would be that if someone saw you looking at it, they'd be like, oh my God, that's a dope drink right there. Not even knowing that it's sparkling water. And they've got cool names too. Like this one is Severed Lime. So it's not just lime. They have that cool like adjective with it that describes it. And I guess, they did a good job, positioning themselves with the type of consumers that they would want to hit.
And that's a decision, right? That naming decision. We have a whole naming team and they think about things like that, not just the name of the brand, but product naming. Like, and what does that say? All those things. And that is, at the end of the day, brand is a culmination of all those experiences, right? It's the sum of all the interactions and experiences that anyone has with a brand, and every time you have an experience or interaction, you are either building equity into that brand or you're eroding it, right? It's either delivering on what you think it is or it's not. And then over time, if you have a brand that does it well and they're delivering, then the associations are stronger. If you have a brand that says, one thing and their product tastes like, trash, and then they're also not upholding their end of the bargain throughout those activations, like then the brand equity is going to be destroyed and like they're not going to have a strong brand.
I guess short to say, there's a lot to think about. And I'm actually psyched that we're talking about this because I think in every episode up until this point, we've been mostly focusing on the creatorship side from the videography side, the music perspective, the photography perspective, but not exactly from an actual business standpoint. And this doesn't just apply to businesses as well. I think there's a lot of application in your own personal life if you're trying to figure out how to brand yourself in the industry or community that you want to be branded in. Same questions to ask, what value am I providing to the people in my space? What type of person am I looking to attract into my life? Similar questions that would be applied from a business that transition well into your own personal.
Couldn't have said it better, my man.
Oh, man. I think a lot of this conversation has really made me think about it because I actually haven't told anyone on the podcast yet, but I'm also a brand strategist, but I'm very new to the job. Just sort of dipping my foot in, and I felt like that was why this conversation would be beneficial to me, but also beneficial to the people out there that are interested in this type of thing, because I'm contacted by prospective students, not all the time, but a decent amount that are like, yo, how can I get into what you're into? It sounds interesting, more in line with my interest because it has that creative flair that perhaps a traditional business role wouldn't. I'm like, oh, this is dope. But I think someone could explain it better than me, someone who's been in the space a little bit longer. So I'm glad we're having this conversation.
I love it, man. And I'm happy. I'm happy for you. And I think all the things that make you are going to make you a great brand strategist.
Hell yeah. I don't talk about it too often because mostly we're focused on the other person. But yeah, it's something I'm starting to get into. And that's why hopefully I have a little bit of something to add. But why don't we segue real quick and talk about one of our favorite topics that we've kind of been throwing in. I want to talk about shoes for a while and just kick it, talk about some of your favorite shoes, your favorite sneaker stories, and I'll share some of mine as well before we, wrap up.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I have a quick one. It's actually very recent. And I think I told you this, but this is like just, I think the divine sneaker gods knowing that I'm not a reseller and just showing me the love. Basically, when the Jordan 1 Chicago's just re-dropped earlier this year, I was watching it, man. I mean, this is a classic shoe. You know what I mean? It's like the issue in a lot of people's opinions. So
the Reds, the Chicago's, the two.
Yes. And like
King and Queen.
Bro, my red is my jam. You know what I mean? Like this is like a lot of
clearly right there. Red.
Yeah, it's red everywhere. And so I'd been working on this article too. It was about Foot Locker and how Nike's consumer direct strategy, and then that affecting Foot Locker, like basically it wasn't a big deal or as big a deal for like Macy's, DSW, like all these other outlets, but for Foot Locker it is, and why. So basically I talked about what that did again to Foot Locker's brand, the position from my perspective as an opinion piece. And the same day that article got published in The Drum, which is like big for me. And I was, I love The Drum. I was so grateful that I was able to be, published there. I hit on the Jordan 1s, man. So like the day my sneaker article came out, the same day I hit on sneakers for the Jordan 1s, it was crazy. I was
dipping into your pool of serendipity right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. Yeah, you didn't tell me this story before. But okay, good. It seems like the sneaker gods have been blessing you recently. You've been getting a decent amount of the drops.
Have. Oh, yes, I have. And I've been super lucky.
I've only hit like twice on that app.
Dude, I hit
in like 4 years.
I hit for my daughter. I hit like 2 or 3 times for me. I mean, I don't know. And I'm hoping it runs, or else I'm going to be like looking all over for a resale on the 3s when they drop, the Fire Reds.
How many sneakers do you think you have in your collection?
Honestly, not that many for as much as I love shoes. Maybe like 20.
Oh, from our conversation, I thought you had like hundreds.
No, I know, right? Like, dude, I have to be so judicial about, I'm in one, space, and 2, like, yeah, dude, I love shoes. I just haven't been able to like really, I'm starting to get into this point in my life where I have more disposable income and like I can dedicate like to shoes, but I'm also trying to be diligent and not like go too crazy.
Yeah, we're talking offline about this, but I basically had a crazy phase where for a year and a half, all my disposable income went straight to shoes. And as a result, I built up a crazy collection of just shoes I always wanted. But now, as a result of my sneaker addiction, I had to completely cold turkey cut it off. So that's exactly what I did. And I was telling him there was a time period where shoes were my life. So much so that I went to go deliver a TED Talk, and the topic was literally shoes. I love shoes that much. But I had to take a hiatus, and that hiatus I am still on. But I'm hoping in the future, maybe I can get back into it. But for now, we're going to keep my wallet away from sneakers. But if we had to talk about favorite sneakers, what would it be for you?
Ooh, yeah.
Like favorite in your collection, I guess. So you don't have to pick from the thousands out there.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, what were we talking about? We were talking about earlier. We were talking about Ultra Boost. We went through everything. Cortez's, all that. I think for me right now, my favorite shoe, and I love my Jordan 1s, but I'm feeling like my 3s. My Desert Elephant 3s are like my favorite at the moment. And I love my Delta 2s, man. Those are fire, but I feel like my 3s right now.
Was there a specific colorway historically that got you into it?
The 3s?
Yeah. Blacksmiths?
Oh, yes. 100%. And that's why I'm looking forward to these fire reds, because that's like a classic too. And like a lot of love for that sneaker, because it was Tink's first sneaker. You know what I mean? Like when he came on, and Tink is iconic. So it was like, there's a lot wrapped up in that.
Iconic, man. You know, actually for me, I would also say if I had to pick a Jordan, Air Jordan 3 would also be my favorite. The Alma Meniere 3s, I got them when they first dropped. And I don't know whether or not I should do this, but I only wear when an event that I feel like is worth wearing comes up. Yeah. So I've actually only worn the shoe, and I think it came out, definitely at least a year and some ago, like April. I don't remember when it came out, but it definitely came out a while ago. It was not recent at all, in terms of like a year or something like that. But I only wear it to specific events, and I think I've worn them 5 times. 5 times. With the last one being for a long time. With the last one being at graduation. So they're in a box. And I only take them out when it's like, a really special day. There's one day actually last year, or this past year actually, I fasted with some of my Muslim friends during Ramadan. So that was the first time I ever done something like that. And I woke up at 6 a.m., hit the prayer with them, didn't eat until 11 p.m. And I'd never done anything like that. That day I made sure I was like, this is a very special day. Because I experienced it for one day and they do it for 30 days. And I was like, man, hats off to y'all for really having the willpower to do it. Because it's not easy to go without water and food. And you have to really pause a lot of activities that you would probably enjoy doing just to make sure that you can abide by those rules. And I had a lot of respect for them. So that day was one of the days I busted them out.
Yeah, my wife basically, she made a deal with me. She's like, I don't care how many shoes you get, you need to wear them.
Oh, you need to wear them? Yeah, it'd be a shame. So I in my collection, and not all of them are like J's or anything like that. A lot of them were just sneakers I was interested in getting when I was a lot younger. I have 125 pairs of shoes.
I mean, and that's still not crazy.
It's not. It fills up my whole closet, like all the racks up. All the bottom space, it's not crazy. It's not like 1,000. You're right. Yeah. There's even crazier than that. But I think to the normalize, it's like, how do you have so many? And then I also realized, it's like, how am I going to wear all these?
I've saved, but I'm a weirdo too, man. Like I have because my shoes I have on display, not like all of them in the box, but I've saved like some of my favorite boxes too.
There's some boxes I've kept, and there's always been like the special edition. Mm-hmm. Oh, like this shoe has a special box. You just need to keep it. But actually, no, for the most part, I've kept almost all the boxes too. It's the very few that I've just let go because of space. But for the most part,
that's an activation, brother. You know what I mean? The box, the whole unboxing thing. That is how you're experiencing that brand in a lot of ways. Apple is huge for that. How you unbox Apple products. Like that is a big part of like you buying it and everything. Like that just to our conversation earlier, that's another activation.
Yeah, that'd be, I just kind of got into cologne. And one of the best things about cologne is there's 2 things, the scent and the bottle. And I guess the brand too, but the scent and the bottle that create the brand. And the bottle is so important because if it has a really great bottle design, Versace Eros, it has a lion on it, bright blue. you just know that it's going to pack a nice smell. So yeah, just speaking about the experiential part, there's an experience to, I guess, every product that we buy. It's like, man, the coloring, the packaging. Why is it so great to unbox a shoe? Why do all these YouTubers have unboxing blank? It's because the unboxing experience is satisfying as hell.
Yeah.
You picked your favorite shoe. My favorite shoe in my collection, easily Nike Air Fear God 1, even though that has since passed its time. Haven't been able to let that one go. I only wear it during the winter. I have 2 pairs of them. And every single time I'm like, yeah, I'm going to lace these up. Hardest shoe ever to put on. But it's like when you have them on feet, it's like, damn, there's no other designer that's done it like Jerry. Shout out that man for killing the game. And I'm waiting for his Adidas product whenever that comes out.
I know. They'll probably have to sort through this Kanye stuff first.
And it's been a while since he signed. I was really surprised that like nothing has been made yet. Yeah. And I'm just waiting. I'm like, when is this guy going to drop the most groundbreaking Adidas product ever since the Yeezy 750 or 350 V2, I guess.
Yeah. The V2.
We're waiting for it. What about a sneaker story? Do you have a story in mind, another story in mind that's like when you got a sneaker that was like, oh my God, I can't believe I hit these?
Not necessarily, but I remember, dude, I don't know if you remember these, like way back in the day. I was in middle school, man, and I wanted these shoes bad. They were like hard to get. Nike Prestos. I don't know if you remember these. These were like slip-ons.
I know the shoe as it is now.
Yeah. No, I mean, like when they, like, I don't know if this was the first time they dropped, but like it was the first time I ever saw them. I was young, and my parents were like, "Are you sure you want this shoe? Like, it's weird looking." I'm like, "No, I love this shoe." Like, saved up. They finally kind of like caved, and they were like, "It's expensive. I don't know." And I was like, "Please, please, please." Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and who do you mean? Oh, I don't know. I don't even know. I just saw them in the store.
Oh, you saw them in the store. This is like one of their, I guess, general release shoes, and you were like, "Oh my God, this is fire."
Yeah. It wasn't like an exclusive drop or anything, but they were super hard to get. And I was like, man. So I wanted them in red, and for whatever reason, like that was hot too. So finally got them. Was so stoked, dude. I want to say within a week of wearing them, because of the way the material was, like I like ripped it on something. I was so bummed. Like the shoe was just, I was like fucking ruined. I was like, I cannot believe this shit.
Wow, I can't believe all it took was 1 week of wearing.
I know, dude. I mean, but it was glorious while I had them. It was great.
If they don't look like they do now, then I don't know what they look like. Because I know the Presto's gone through iterations, but it's like the classic, like light with the, I don't even know how to describe it. They had the mesh top.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Exactly.
That shoe's still around. People still buy it.
Yeah.
I think.
And I don't know. I probably wouldn't wear it today, but like when I was a kid, like at that time, like that shoe was just fire to me. And I was like, oh, I gotta get this. And
I feel like for nostalgia purposes, you got to get another pair.
Yeah. But it was like always white on white Airs, like Construct Tims, which I still have a pair of Construct Tims. They're fucking great.
The Undestructible, probably have them for 10, 20 years.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Do you still rock Air Force Ones? Is that like a staple for you?
I honestly don't have lows. They used to just always be white on white lows. And I think I'm going to pick some up soon. Or some dunks. I'm like in between, like, but I want some lows because my deltas are lows. Everything else I have is either like mid or high. So I do have some airs though, some highs. They had these like gold, brown, like orange, kind of like, and it's like the San Diego, like those San Diego colors. I was like, oh, I gotta buy these. So like I picked them up and I wear them with like my Padres hat or whatever.
Hey, are you Chargers or Rams guy?
Neither, man. Never really got it. Like by the time I was so out of like sports by the time I got here, and like when all that happened, I was just like, Chargers played at Qualcomm and everything, and then they moved, and I just was like, I don't care enough to. Like,
oh, you don't care enough? Yeah, I know the football team left. Now they're all in LA, so I was just curious, but
yeah.
I know they used to have like some Chargers exclusive like colorways, not on any like major shoe, but on like, the occasional like Nike. I don't know if it was one of the running shoes. I forget which one, Pegasus, like 36 or something like that.
Yeah, because it's baby blue, yellow, you know what I mean? It's pretty like you see those colors and like makes sense. Like they're flat colors.
I'm trying to think of like one other like shoe story I have that's like phenomenal. One thing is I didn't realize, I guess because I grew up in the age of the internet, how big like a shoe drop was when you had to stand in line.
Yeah.
And I did it for the first time in 2020. Like I was so late to going in person, but I only went in person to maximize my chances of getting the shoe. This is the Air Jordan 3 UNC 2020 February, and I wanted them so bad. Hauled my friend to the store. I thought we got to the store early. Like we got there like 8.
Nope.
No, there was a line. And actually the first store we went to, which was like a Foot Locker, I believe. They actually sold out when we got to the front of the line. And I was like, there's no way you saw it out my size. So we ran down to the Nike store in the same mall and was fortunate enough to snag a pair. And, this guy was just like, I'm just here to resell it. And he just went ahead and resold it. Was not in his shoes at all. I had to beg him to come.
I know.
I still have them. Only worn like 10 times. I don't know what it is. The sneakers I find gorgeous. I'm just like, I can't trash them. I'm like, I want to keep this thing in existence as long as possible, but maybe I got to change that. I've been wearing Chucks recently and just beating those around and then saving like the heat for days that I'm like, I'm not going in sand or mud today.
Yeah. I mean, that's blasphemous. You can't be, you got to have some beater shoes for that stuff. You can't like, I don't think I could do it. I couldn't like take my, like even an old pair of Jordans, something like through the mud. Like, oh my God, my kid, it was one of the hardest things for me, bro. My daughter's Dunks. And like, she's a kid,
she ran in them.
She's
crazy.
Dude, climbing, all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, I got to let her be a kid. I'm not going to be like a crazy psycho. But her Jordan 1s that she has, like she has not worn those out to like anything. I'm like, look, you could beat up these Dunks. That's fine. You want to play basketball and you want to do whatever. That's cool. But like, not these ones over here. Like these ones over here, like we're going to keep nice. We're only wearing certain times or whatever. So like, and she's cool with that because we all match. Like my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, and then me. We all have the same Jordan 1, same colorway. So like, that's okay.
Get your wife on the tally, and then you have all 4 of you for the family picture.
I was going to, but they sold out. She's 6.5, and they sold out quick when I saw the redrop, and I was like, shit, I missed it. But she doesn't care that much about sneakers like I do.
Last question about
some low rose gold Dunks though that are fire.
Oh, okay. I don't even think I know that colorway, but that sounds like fitting, I guess, for the situation. Yeah. Last question about sneakers before we round out. You get 3 shoes in your collection for the rest of your life as your rotation. What are you picking?
I'm going, okay. I'm doing, in my current collection, if I could only wear what's in my current collection for the rest of my life, I would say I think, because I'm thinking like the rest of my life, should I pick a dress shoe? Should I pick, you know what I mean? Like,
honestly, I had a dress shoe in my mind, so maybe.
Yeah, all right. I'll do. Fuck, I'm definitely doing my Timbs. Like, I gotta have my Timbs. Like, those are just like all purpose. Like, I would definitely want a boot. You know what I mean? And that, like, whatever. I think my Desert Elephants, because honestly, those are classy. I feel like I could get away with like the right dress setting, like having their suede, they're like black leather, like. All right, that will suffice as a dress shoe for now. And I'm going to go with between my Delta 2s because they're so comfortable, but also like my shell toes. Like that's a classic shoe. Like my Superstars, like
classic.
Fat laces. All right, I'll go with the shell toes.
You go with the shell toes. For me, I'm rolling with the Air Jordan 1 on Miniere. Love that colorway. White, burgundy. I love the story behind it. That would be like my hype shoe. Next, for the dress shoes, easily going with the Common Projects. I mean, they're not dress shoes, but I just think they're so classy, so stylish. And Common Projects is actually the only designer brand shoe I'll buy from. Yeah. I just love that it's minimal. And the only thing you know to tell is the gold branding on like the left side of the heel. So I'll go Common Projects in all white. And then lastly, this is where it kind of gets difficult, but I feel like I got to go with like an athletic shoe. Shout out On Running. I've been getting into them recently. Cloud Monster, I think is what it's called. It's like this fat shoe with huge stubs at the bottom. Incredibly comfortable. And I've been trying to get into more of the not spoken too much about it, like shoes. I know Hoka's doing it. Hoka's starting to become huge. I think On is kind of doing their thing too, so I'm going to have to go with that. So those would be my 3 if I had to pick.
That's dope. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even pick a running shoe.
Just like an athletic, all purpose. Yeah. But have you tried Ons yet? Or Hoka or any of that?
No. I'm gonna look it up though.
They're comfortable. And they're like good for sport. Like I'm running miles in these Ons.
Working out, I'll use Innovates.
Innovates. What brand is that?
Innovate. That's a brand. Like INOV8.
I've never heard of them. Is it like a smaller brand?
Workout. Yeah, probably a smaller, but like workout shoe. They're like indestructible. Oh no, I can't say that. But like they have some that are like pretty, like you could beat them up pretty good. Like I have a pair that I had for like 5 years, and there's like rips and tears and stuff, but they're still like good. They're so comfortable. Lightweight.
American or not?
I think so.
Okay. I need to check them out. I've never heard of them before.
Yeah.
Shit. Any last major thoughts that you want the audience to know about anything we talked about, or just your life or anything like that before we round out? I feel like we just covered the world.
I know. I'm like trying to go back and say one thing.
Oh, man.
I don't think so. I think just like, yes, the thing I'll say is like, if you're thinking about it, like do it. Like reach out to people. That's such a hard thing to do. We're all self-conscious of like their self-worth in there. Like, should I be the one reaching out? Like, is this person busy? All that. Just go for it. Just reach out. If they're busy, they'll tell you. You know what I mean? If not, you may make a great connection and end up on their podcast. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But like, it's totally worth it. And I think people should do that more, and we should look to help each other more. Oh
yeah. That's a good message to end off with. Where can they find you at?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Frankie Margotta. That's I use LinkedIn a lot. I think just for work and everything. Instagram, same thing. Frankie Margotta. TikTok, same thing. Like same name everywhere. My website, I have a personal website, same my name, Frankie Margotta. You can find me on the Siegel and Gale website, through Siegel and Gale, all those different places. And if you do find me and you want to reach out, please do.
Hell yeah. I think that's a great way to cap off. You know where to find the podcast. We're on all streaming platforms, YouTube, and hopefully, I don't even know what else there is to expand into, but I think we've touched all the borders that we could. So if you're tuning in and you've gotten this far into this, what must now be an hour and a half, I appreciate you for tuning in. Every episode that we're coming out with, I think is just getting better and better and better. And I think the guest that we have on, an example today, he gives so much value, advice, and I think hopefully can also be entertaining as well. So leave us a review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, greatly appreciate it. And it helps us run on the chart list. So if you want to keep supporting us, please feel free to do that. And you can, if you want to be a guest on the podcast, reach out, capturingformpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach out there and we can talk more. So thank you for tuning in to another episode. We'll be back again next week. I'm your host, Freddie, and I'll catch you then. Peace.